On to the next part of this chapter, and we come on to functions. Well, functions are simply something that maps an input to an output. So if say we have input, output, input 3, output 9, input 5, output 25, input -4, output 16. Well, you've probably realised what I'm doing there is squaring it. So y equals x squared. Now y is a function of x, y is in terms of x, and that function is to square. So you take an input, square it, you get the output. So y is a function of x, the function of x is x squared. So that's the notation we would write. You can express this graphically as well, obviously. For a quadratic graph, it would look something like this. Y equals x squared. The input values are what are known as the domain. All the possible input values is called the domain. All the possible output values is called the range. It's important that you remember that. So along the x-axis, the possible x values, domain, all the possible y values is the range. You need to remember that. So in this case, for a simple function like this where we're just squaring it, we could say that x can be any real number. So that symbol means belongs to, so x belongs to the set of real numbers. And in this case, y, the range, would have to be greater than or equal to 0 because you have no negative y value. You can see that from the graph. The solutions to the function, where f of x equals 0, are what we looked at earlier, solving quadratics. They're called the roots. So the solutions are known as roots. And if it's a graph which crosses the x-axis, the roots are where it would cross the x-axis. So if we look now at example 8. Example 8 says that we've got a function f given by 2x take away 10. So that means take the input value, this is the input value, take the input value, double it, take away 10. And we've got a second function g of x is x squared take away 9. So this is the input, we take the input value, square it, subtract 9. Find the values of f of 5 and g of 10. All that means for you to do is take the input value x and swap it for a 5. We're sticking 5 in, what do we get out? Well, f of x means to double it and take away 10. Double it is 10, take 10 is 0. So we double it, take away 10, which is 0. So 5 is a root of this function. It's a solution of it. And g of 10. So to work out, to apply the function g, we square it, take away 9. So square it, 100, take away 9 is 91. Part B asks us, find the value, so there's just a single answer of x for which f of x equals g of x. So let's just equate the two equations, the two functions. 2x take away 10 equals x squared take away 9. So let's make one of the sides equal to 0, and you want the x squared part to be positive. So both of these are going to move over. We end up with x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 0. Go to our first method, which is to factorise. Times together to make add 1, add together to make minus 2. They've both got to be minus, because that's the only way of making that positive or that negative, and it's clearly going to be 1, which means there's only one solution when x equals 1. You can test that. When x equals 1, 2 times 1 is 2, take away 10 is minus 8, 1 squared is 1, take away 9 is minus 8. So when x equals 1, you get the same output for when 1 is the input. Go on to example 9. Example 9, we're given the function f of x equals x squared plus 6x take away 5. And part A says to express it in the form x plus p squared plus q. And you need to recognise that means, when it says express in this form, it means to complete the square. So you should know how to complete the square. It's going to be x, a plus, a square, a minus. And we'll do the minus 5 at the end. Halve this number, square that number. So putting those together, we get x plus 3 squared, take away 14 in that form. So p would be 3, q would be minus 14. We're then told or asked find the roots. Now when it says to find the roots, it means find the solutions. It means set the function equal to 0 and solve it. So part B, we've already put it in completed square form. So bring the 14 across. Square root. I didn't need that bracket. Now don't forget when we square it, the answer can be positive or negative. So you've got 2 solutions there, and then bring the plus 3 over as minus 3. So you've got 2 solutions. X equals minus 3 plus root 14, x equals minus 3 minus root 14. And then check the question, does it want third form, does it want a decimal? Do you need your calculator? It says leave it in third form, or it might say find the exact answer. Let's leave it like this. It then asks us for the minimum value of f of x and state the value for which that occurs. Well, you can think about this, you can do it graphically, you can think about it logically from the completed square form. So if we look at that part. Now, whenever you square anything, the answer has to be greater than or equal to 0. Because when you square something, any negative turns to a positive. So this part of the solution has to be bigger than or equal to 0. So this solution has to be bigger than or equal to minus 14. So the smallest value, the smallest output value this function can ever take is minus 14, and that's the minimum value. Minimum output equals minus 14, and that occurs where this bracket is equal to 0, the smallest output value that bit can take, and that's going to occur when x equals minus 3. Now if we wanted to look at that graphically, what that means is you're going to have a minimum point at minus 3 on the x-axis, minus 14 on the y-axis. So the graph would look something like so. It's just a quadratic, and you would cross the y-axis at minus I. Example 10. Find the roots of the function f of x equals x to the 6 plus 7x cubed, take away 8. So find the roots means we set the function equal to 0 and we solve it. Now, this is an example of what we call a quadratic in disguise. So it kind of looks like a quadratic, but it's not in the typical form. So let's say, for example, y equals x cubed, and substitute that in. Well, if y equals x cubed, y squared equals x to the 6. Because if we square that, 3 times 2 is 6. X cubed times x cubed, add the powers together, x to the 6. So we'd have y squared rather, plus 7y, take 8 equals 0. So y, 2 numbers, multiply together to make minus 8. Add together to make 7. It must be 8 and take away 1. 8 times minus 1 is minus 8. 8 take 1 is 7. So give us solutions. Y is minus 8. Y is 1. Don't forget though, we were after the solutions in terms of x. Remember, y is x cubed. So we've got x cubed equals minus 8. X cubed equals 1. So if we cube root both of those, x equals minus 2, x equals 1. And those would be the 2 solutions, the 2 roots. Okay, that's all the examples up to exercise 2e. Have a go at exercise 2e now.